ask you to give us more, if you take, this requires expertise. For example, a lot of people make the mistake of agreeing for the payment from the policy to come in after the incident is completed, which could take years when you need money right now for incident response. As an example, do you have more practical examples for us how this can work?
I think talking from a state government point of view and from municipal government, it's really been all over the map. We've had some really good experience. Cyber insurance companies have partnered. Cyber insurance companies have partnered with different types of small government entities, have worked with them to build up their policies, to come up with a baseline for security, to help them do testing of their systems, so that the insurance is there as a buffer, but it's not, it's not something that they hope they'll use, and if they use, they're going to limit the risk to the insurance company. We've also seen other situations where entities have spent literally $100,000 in a cybersecurity policy and got $10,000 in coverage when there was a breach, and then they got into litigation over what was covered because the policies were so vaguely drafted that they could be misinterpreted either way. So I think there's going to be a lot more litigation that comes up with people fighting over you should have covered me, like it's too ambiguous. The author of the insurance policy, you're at fault if it's ambiguous. So I think it's just an area that people are looking at. The other thing just to raise is when the payment card industry model grew probably 15 years ago, that's an excellent model to kind of show where cybersecurity is going. Because the credit card companies built a whole industry of protection. And the self-assessment somebody else mentioned only goes so far because you can interpret self-assessment in any way that you want. So I think if you're trying to see where cybersecurity is going, look at the PCI and how they built a whole model to protect that industry.
Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate you making this practical. Somebody wanted to step in and I cut you off rudely. Please go on.
No problem. I just want to say I have to agree with Al, because what happens, at least in Europe, is the same what he described. So for the small and medium businesses, it's an off-the-shelf product right now, and this is going to be changed. And I can tell that by an experience that I've made. I was going to be hired, but someone asked me to work for their insurance company, which is a big one in Europe, a real big one. And when I was in the interview process, I asked several questions, and they told me, and this was strange to me and counterintuitive. They told me, okay, we have a product which is cyber insurance, which is super complex, and for the big companies, they work almost 1 year to negotiate a policy with them. So for instance, BMW or Deutsche Bank, those are companies that negotiate 1 year with a cyber insurance company or an insurance company to get the deal done. This is not the case for small and medium businesses, because they just like Alex said, you tick some boxes, you fill out a form, and then that's it. And the problem was, and this is the reason why they were looking for people with a cybersecurity background, because they had none. So they had just insurance guys who making up forms and policies, but they had no touch with the industry. They had no touch with the risk behind that. And so I talked to 6 different people within this company, within this interview process, and they had no clue about cybersecurity. They were just completely clueless. And the experience that they've made with their mistakes of the past was that some of their policies actually detonated. So they had to pay, and they hated their situation. So this is the reason why they now shell money at all the experts and try to get all the experts into their company, their insurance company, which does nothing else than create a paper to lift the risk or the residual risk from the small and medium businesses to the insurer to make money, because at the end of the day it's a financial product. This is what I can say from my experience. And the other thing is AIG. I talked to someone from AIG, and he told me that, yeah, it's completely true. They have a special team that negotiates for big companies, and they have almost no one to do that in a certain and clean way for the small and medium businesses.
Yeah. Which is really interesting. So
She's very excited about the yellow umbrella.
One of the challenges this company face.
So I'm really glad that
methodology or framework
arrived.
they're going to use to determine the insurance terms, essentially, and how far they will go. Because actuarially, they have just not enough information from history to be able to determine any kind of financial model that makes sense. So they try to add threat intelligence and ISO 27001 and so on and so forth. But before we move on, continue on this, we have a couple of people who've been waiting for a while. Or, how are you doing today?
Okay, hold on, I'm reading.
I don't know if you talked about it before, but I want to mention the latest attack on the Florida's Towns water. If somebody heard about it, it's a hacking try that it happened in the last Friday in Florida's Towns water. What happened is that the hackers used the TeamView of employee computer, which was connected to SCADA infrastructure, and they tried to manipulate it so the water will be poisoned. And what happened after that? They researched that they understood that all the computers, all the employees' computers that the employers used were connected to the SCADA system, and they all used versions of Windows 7 and used the same passwords, so very big no-no, but I want to know what you think about it, all this event.
I don't know, I think the attack might be a lie because it was very basic. For those who don't get it, the sodium hydroxide is known as lye, and it is a very heavy base.
Alright, so Andy, I need to go for a while. Can you take over?
Sure, until my chili's done cooking. Anybody want to talk?
That's 100% reasonable. Just before we do that, a room reset. Everybody, welcome to Cybersecurity Friends. We're happy to have you here. Please, please, please raise your hand, especially if you're a woman. We would love to hear from you. A question, just saying hi. That'll be pretty awesome. Also, if you want to keep following us, then follow one of the speakers, and you will be able to tell in the future when something is going on, as currently we can't open a club. We just had a couple of people join, just in time for you to take over it.
Awesome. So we've got a question on the table about what people think about the attack. I go with a simple, just this is one of the things that shows the importance of what we might think of as basic security hygiene. Just getting your settings and configurations correct and making sure that they're not overly and dangerously permissive, especially from admin tools. But does anybody else have any thoughts on that one?
Question from what you said earlier, Andy. Did you mean that the attack was a lie, as in like false, or that the attack was trying to trigger the chemical lie?
I was making a pun on triggering the chemical lie, which is a very strong base.
It was a funny pun.
It was a chemistry joke.
I yield that.
But I have to say, you don't feel like you're working so hard in order to make the internet more secure, your customers more secure, and then hear about this. That, it's very, very bad thing. Like using those kind of techniques in SCADA environment and water supply environment.
Yeah, no, it's well, that's the whole definition of what SCADA was designed for, is for things like the water and, power grids. But the challenge here is that you have SCADA connected to the internet, except it's connected through a control system, and in a sense, folks like us are part of the problem here, which is, when you have systems and security administrators who want to be able to have remote access from their desktops to not have to do harder things, you kind of do end up with pretty bad situations like this. I mean, consider NotPetya as being a variant of the same problem, just with very different outcomes.
We also now live in the remote economy.
Absolutely, and I would just say, coming from government, that this is not surprising, as horrible as it sounds. It just shows you where the resources and training are not going. And I think, that's the people who are in the trenches doing the work in a lot of government fields are not getting the focus, the training, or the resources to be able to protect these major services that are being provided by government. So this is just an example of what's out there and where people really need to start focusing attention.
Okay, sounds like we got our commentary on that question. So with that, we'll pivot to our next person. Jenny, I think you'd already popped up and asked a question, which would make it Amy.
Hi, I was wondering what you think about supply chain attacks, like the one that happened to, oh my gosh, what are they called? It's
SolarWinds.
Yeah, SolarWinds. Do you think that'll happen more frequently?
Oh, this is where I have a big soapbox. So, people talk a lot about zero trust, and I know everybody's like, oh god, another buzzword. But no, I'm serious on this one. And we focus on the trust about, we shouldn't trust end users. And the thing that we've missed is we shouldn't trust administrators. And so when you think about SolarWinds, SolarWinds Orion is a remote management platform for systems. And I dare say that any large enterprise probably has somewhere between 10 and 30 systems with distributed administration capability like SolarWinds. And if people really want to believe in the zero trust buzzword, what they really need to pivot to is a model that says the user's computers, the edge machines, shouldn't trust the centralized administrative infrastructure because that trust creates the problem that SolarWinds or Sunburst, as I think some people are now calling the attack, gets to exploit, which is all you have to do is attack this one person in your supply chain and your entire trusted computing base is compromised.
I'll add one thing here, and this may not be the popular opinion as well, but a lot of what happened with SolarWinds, like if we go back and we look, hey, listen, one particular very high privilege component, exactly as I said, suddenly became malicious, right? That's basically what happened, right? I'm wondering, the thing is, for all of these companies who have deployed this infrastructure out there, my question is, why were they allowed to get the HTTP command and control out from that SolarWinds server? I mean, to what extent have people left the SolarWinds equipment with enough equipment to go out to arbitrary locations on the internet? That's the question that's on my mind. I understand that, for example, blocking the DNS command and control would have been incredibly difficult, fair point, but to what are people really using network management stations with arbitrary internet access? That's the point that I'm struggling with a little bit.
Well, I think it's played that way too, Fernando, which is lots of people would like to firewall those off, but the challenge is that firewalls are not DNS aware in general, and so if you'd like to rate limit and control these things, you have to do it by IP address, which is monumentally stupid.
I agree 1,000%, yes. But then the question becomes, if you have these kinds of threat actors in your threat model, shouldn't you be upgrading that infrastructure a little bit? But anyway, that's my goal so far.
One consideration for the zero trust mindset that Andy talked about is that we don't actually apply zero trust principles to the vendors and the products that they sell us. Now, when we apply that general principle, of course we have to, if we're going to use the product, then we need to be able to confer some degree of trustworthiness. And part of that trustworthiness comes from an understanding of its behavior, its intended behavior, as well as its ongoing behavior. I think to Andy's point, it's very difficult to manage, for example, the rule set around what this thing's supposed to do, what IP addresses it can talk to, and so on and so forth. But that's the same challenge that we had before all the orchestration technologies that we've seen emerge from all the vendors claiming to help us do zero trust. I just think we need to be able to find ways to apply it to all the vendor products that we also use as well.
If I may add to what Andy was talking about as well regarding zero trust, I believe we shouldn't trust anybody, users, resources, and also administrators. Resources, specifically going with IoT devices, they all contribute to the zero trust. And as we all know, majority of the attack comes inside the attacks. So we shouldn't really trust anybody. Go with the idea of trusting nobody and then really gain the trust based on the activities and based on what really happens when they want.
Right, and I wanted to add on the topic about the vendor, trusting the vendor. It's so challenging and annoying for years. You point out things like, for instance, there's many times I've worked with vendors where they do have these simple passwords such as the SolarWinds 123. You demand that they change it once you really finally found out, and they give you this excuse like, oh, it's too deep in code, the way we develop it, experience. And the response I've gotten a lot, many times, oh, well, if the hacker's already there at your interface, well, you already lost. You've got bigger problems. They're already at the door of this tool. And I get so disappointed with that answer. That shouldn't be. So I'm hoping that we see some new change out of this, experience with SolarWinds, and a lot of pushback on the vendors, because now I think the talk is going to come up with, how my it can be, when something change out of this, I would say with SolarWinds, and a lot of pushback on the vendors. Now I think the talk is going to come up with,
getting to zero trust is great. I always organizations that SolarWinds are realistically apply zero trust is great. How SolarWinds is, whatever that happens to be, they don't do the lab, that's I always organizations how much infrastructure is where it's obvious